We need it. Oxygen. It's why we
Hey everyone, you've got Loralyn here. It's time again for the Grit Files. Aren't you glad it's back? I mean, I was kind of sad that I had to step away from it for a while, but 3 bouts of COVID, adult RSV, and then bronchitis took me some time to heal. But I am back in the saddle, as they say, and I've got another terrific guest here for you this week. Her name is Annie Mork, and she has created a site called Jobs for Therapists. And so you're thinking, what does this mean? Well, we're going to find out. Hey, Annie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, of course, we're always excited to have new entrepreneurs, and you're freshly minted, as I understand. Just Jobs for Therapists is just really getting going, and you're already getting terrific traction. Talk to us about the impetus behind it. Why did you want to get this started, and what's your background?
Yeah, so I am a speech therapist myself, practicing for about 6 years now, and I have held quite a few different positions along the way. Have done school positions, pediatric outpatient, did some travel therapy. It started in the middle of the pandemic, which was very exciting. And then now I do teletherapy from my home in Denver. And through that experience, have looked at a lot of job boards and searched for a lot of different jobs. Once one contract ends, I need to look for another job. And I found the settings on typical job sites just weren't made for the therapy world. So, when I'm looking for a job that's remote now, because I have licenses in 4 different states, and I type in remote and I'm looking for a job in California because I'm licensed there, I'll see this job with really great pay. And I'm like, how are they paying that much? And turns out it's a home health job, which tend to pay more in our industry. And, it's remote. It's not necessarily in an office, but it's not typical remote where I get to sit at home in my comfy clothes, So just thought it would be nice to have a site that was made for us and you could filter based on home health or, working in a nursing home or a travel position, just because the typical sites weren't made for that. At the same time, there's lots of recruiters out there trying to find us therapists, whether it's physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, psychology, any of those in that realm. And it's a lot to sort through on, a typical site to find who is looking for a job. And, our site lets you provide filters so that, if I am looking for a job, I can go into the talent network, a recruiter can find me, or I can back out and say, hey, I'm good where I'm at. I don't need to be reached out to.
And who knew that remote meant like in the woods, in the sticks, like above tree line? Everybody thinks remote, well, of course, remote is synonymous with yoga pants and fuzzy slippers. But no, I guess not in the therapy world. Interesting. See, this is why we have people like you on our show. So we learn things.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So you've told us a little bit about that light bulb moment and what you're doing. You're still, like I said, kind of fresh meat in the entrepreneur world. So maybe you haven't been beaten down enough yet, but I like to always find out, because our other entrepreneurs are curious, on those days when stuff is hard, because it will get hard. There's always something that's going to be hard. What do you do, or what is your plan to do? So when you do encounter that kind of a day, you go, yep, I'm going to slough it off. I'm going to get up and I'm going to do it again. What's your thinking around this?
I had a few days. I'm kind of one of those, I like shiny and new things. And so when it's exciting and brand new, I'm like, yeah. And I put all my energy into it. And as soon as it's hard, I'm like, nope, moving on to something else. So I would say Jobs for Therapists is definitely something I'm most proud of, because I've stuck with it probably the longest of, anything else outside of school. And the days where it's hard, I don't know if I have any advice on how to deal with it. My husband's a great go-to where, he'll be like, no, this is good. He's in the business world. And so he's like, no, this is going really well compared to other businesses. He's in the startup world, and that helps a lot. But I think what I've seen over a short amount of time is when I hit, a rock, or I'm like, this is just, it's not working. How do we move from here? How do we grow our user base? Things like that. That's when the ideas start coming, that it's like, you have to start being creative in that moment to be like, okay, well, what if I reached out to all the universities for the students graduating and told them about our page? Okay, what if I reached out to, this organization and see if we can partner together? What if I just send a bunch of messages on LinkedIn? And you start building that creativity because you're kind of forced to. If you're like, okay, if this isn't working, we got to pivot and we got to go down this avenue then. And I find that you don't run out of things to do if you're really passionate about it and you see the purpose behind it.
Oh yeah, and that's just it. It's just it forces that creativity because you've got to. You're determined to succeed. And like you, I'm like that, oh, little ADHD, bright and shiny new object syndrome. Like, oh, I'm like the moth to the flame. It's like the more intense it's burning, the more I want to be in the flame. And that creates its own set of challenges. So I hear you on that there's things coming. And you've already been through this, like I said, just moving things along. And have you had oh my God moment yet?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know if we've really had one of those yet. There's definitely a few like initial emails, like cold emails I would send people. And now it's like, oh, I would word that differently now where we're at. And I wouldn't say it was definitely like a terrible, like they'd never do business with us ever again. But it's like, oh, maybe I would word things differently now with my experience behind everything, which is still limited and growing every day. But you definitely learn every day as an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah, there's so many things. So you haven't done one of those. I thought I had you on BCC, but had the 75 people on the CC line. Yeah. Those kind of mistakes. I know. I've done it all. So I get it. Now, thinking about all of that, thinking mistakes makes me think of this. And this is one of my favorite things I love to ask people. So if I gave you, we pretend this is the magic undo button and we went, Annie, you got to hit it once, just one whack. What would you change in your life? What would you undo? One thing, personal or professional?
Oh my gosh. In my entire life. I always live by the mantra of, and this isn't like a daily mantra, but I do believe everything in your life has led you to this moment. And, the things that have happened to me in my life have sometimes been very difficult and have not enjoyed some of those things. But where I'm at now, I absolutely love it. And I don't know if I would really change a whole lot, to be honest. If you've ever watched those movies where it's like, the person goes back in time and they change one thing in the whole course of history, kind of like Back to the Future. You change one thing and the whole like future changes. Like, I don't know if I'd want to change from this exact moment right here to be where I'm at. So I don't know if I would change anything.
Few people do. Very, very. I've had hundreds of guests on this show, and very few people want to change anything. So you are not alone. And thinking of magic and Back to the Future, I mean, like, my God, what an amazing movie, right? Just shaped my childhood. That's how old I am. I watched it when it first came out. And the sequel. And I don't think I'd left high school yet when either had been done. But anyway, there we go. If you had an opportunity to say, hey, Loralyn, could you go out and get these kinds of listeners for me? Could you bring them to the attention of Jobs for Therapists? Who would you ask for? And what would you ask the audience to do for you?
Yeah. It's really right now we're focused on, the physical therapy, speech therapy, occupational therapy, and psychology worlds. We're also open to like the BCBAs, ABA therapists, things like that. But if you found those people, specifically the people looking for jobs, but even just the people in general, and said, hey, just sign up for the site, just come hang out with us, be part of our community. We don't spam you with emails unless you sign up for our email subscriber list. Even then, we send it out like once a week, if that. And so just sign up as a user just to build that community. I think any entrepreneur with a website knows the more people click on your site, the more that SEO ticks up, and the word just kind of naturally flows from there. Everyone wants that organic traffic, but if people just come see what we have and just check things out, that's what we're really looking for.
All right, so listeners, you heard Annie. All right, let's go on. So I'm really curious about some of the speech therapy and some of the work that you're doing. And, obviously we're not asking for you to ever disclose any patient confidentiality or anything, but talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you're seeing out there. Is anything trending? Are there things that we as parents or as siblings can do for those that we know that are affected maybe by some speech impediments or other challenges? Talk to us about that. Give us some insights into what it is that you do all day.
Yeah. Love the question. I would say COVID definitely had its impacts on the speech therapy world. And I think people are seeing that just in education in general, just between staffing primarily, but then also just for children, we're seeing those delays in children just because whether they were, really quarantining at home, the mask over the face, impacted the ability to, learn speech sounds with that. And so definitely seeing an uptick in referrals for that, which is great job security for me. And, I love working with the kids. That's my population that I work with. I work mainly in elementary schools. And so getting to work with those kids is fantastic, but a lot of just articulation and just language delays. I always say if there's, one thing you could do for someone in your life who has, speech or language delays, technology, kind of keep it at bay. And those personal interactions are really that's going to be for me, it's the gold standard of, getting to talk with someone, have that back and forth when you're communicating with someone is really going to help them build those language skills, and seeing how you make the speech sounds and everything. That's huge. I definitely think technology has its place. Loralyn and I work together on some things, and, with that, it's a great educational tool. So I would say if someone is using technology, specifically a kid who I work with, and join in with them when they're watching a video, pause it and talk about what's happening, have a conversation about it, point things out. Oh, the puppy in the purple dress, things like that. That to me makes technology more purposeful when you're using it with a child.
Oh, I love that. As someone who runs a soft skills training academy, yes, 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 it is all communication and interpersonal skills, or people skills, right? As some people like to say, but that's just it. We see it all of the time and we understand it. There's no judgment here. A lot of gals and other folks that have been on the show have shared the trials that they have in trying to start a business and raise a child or two or three or a special needs child, lots and lots of layers. And it's so easy to default to that technology and say, here, play with mommy's new iPhone, and we just leave them be. But you've just given every single parent an opportunity to be able to do what we do, which is, okay, we want to give the child that's screaming in the middle of the grocery store the iPhone so that they stop screaming and disrupting everybody else in the store, but how to interact with them. And like you said, make it more purposeful. I love that. Doesn't have to be no.
Yes.
It can be less and then together, right? So that's fantastic. Yeah. What else can you share with us about in the world of speech therapy and how children are progressing now and how they're learning, or maybe when challenged with respect to trying to figure out how do you break in and connect with them, and especially through telehealth? I'm really curious because you're not in person. You're not as animated in front of the child. How do you get them to go yeah, okay, come on, try, get that word out. Come on. I mean, what do you do?
YouTube videos, as someone just talked about technology, YouTube videos are great. And I'm that person that's using those videos of okay, I'm going to pause it and you have to interact with me to get me to play it again. I'm in control. And since we use technology, obviously, to meet on teletherapy, kids are very good at technology. They can figure it out. They're working the mouse. And what I find is kids want independence with it. I meet with these kindergartners who really struggle with using a mouse, which I can't imagine trying to use a mouse as a kindergarten, or the little tracking pad on there. And if you are on the right side, it's technically a right click and they're trying to figure it out. But trying to coach them through it and talk them through it and let them do it themselves. They love being able to be I can do it. I've seen mom or dad or grandma or grandpa do it themselves, and now I can do it. I think they love that independence with it. And just you do have to be overly animated. It's not just walking around being I'm here. I'm probably eyes big smile the entire day. Cause I'm we're doing speech. Let's go. This is fun. And just showing interest in a kid, they're going to love you for it. Now I also work with middle schoolers, and I start every session, whether you're kindergarten through high school, with a 2-minute share. And high schoolers and middle schoolers, without a doubt, have nothing to share. They're unimpressed by me, but right. And so, but if I up the level of the games and be okay, we're going to learn how to play chess today or checkers or whatever. They're okay, you trust me to learn how to do that. Okay. I want to learn that with you. And they've probably seen the Queen's Gambit on Netflix or something. And they're okay, let's do that. And so it's a lot of customization to who the child is and what they're interested in. But think everyone loves to just feel special and want someone to love on them and take interest in them. And that's, I think, the number one thing I do.
That's so key. And then asking them questions, like you said, that are specific and get to it. So many parents I've seen, I've read a lot of forums, talked to a lot of other parents, gone through step parenting myself. And the default question, right? The kid comes home from school. So how was school? Right? It's the default question. And especially, like you said, you talk about the middle schoolers. First, it's the eye roll. Then it's like, right, like the sound of complete and total disgust and irritation. And of course, the answer is fine. Right. So, yeah, that's a great conversation starter. And I had read years and years ago when my stepkids were little, all these different ways to be able to engage with your child when they come home and asking silly questions. So I'd ask things like, did you catch anyone picking their nose today? And it'd just be, it's a whole new conversation. Oh, yeah, it was so disgusting. Joey was doing, whatever, right? Or what happened, or who had really cool hair today. And just these other things. And it's amazing the difference that it makes, because kids do, as you know, I'm sure, want to tune you out. And it's so hard to get them back in.
Yes. I love that. Those are fantastic questions. I'm going to steal that. I'm going to start using that.
You can say it's, well, I'll give you another thing and tell the audience another tip on this. Being a mom, I believe, would be hard enough. I don't know that experience, but as a stepmom, that's also extremely challenging because, of course, you have to recognize your position in this world. You're a bonus parent. You're not whatever. You're not the biological parent and all that sort of good stuff. But it's also where you really do need to stand your ground and demand and command that respect and the love from the child. So we got to the point many, many, many years into the relationship where, every Mother's Day, of course, they go off with their mom and they do all these lovely things as they should. She's their mom, right? But then I'm like, okay, so I'm just with you the other, 300 days of the year and I really do nothing. So I started a tradition. So for all you stepmoms, bonus moms out there, or bonus dads, I started Step Monster Day. And Step Monster Day is by design intended to remind them that they could have had a real super ogre for a step monster, right? For a stepmom, but they didn't. They got me. So the week after Mother's Day, we have Step Monster Day. And it's wonderful. And we buy flowers and I plant in the garden. We hang out and we do all these kinds of things. And I don't cook and I don't clean the dishes. And it's a lovely day. So there is hope.
Yes, I love that.
All right. So if we look at focus back on you here, Annie, what takes you out at the knees?
In life or business or
everything. Like I can imagine with some of the cases that you see, these poor kids, like I just, I'm destroyed when I hear about things happening to children or pets. What takes you out and how do you stay strong?
Oh gosh. I think probably the hardest part, if I would focus on more of what I do in my day-to-day job, I think it's, when working with kids, sometimes you'll see adults either, kind of treat them too much like kids or just kind of almost expect too much, as kids, as someone who works with kids, it's a lot of teaching them how to do things. And so it's, okay, if a kid is having a tantrum, it's okay, well, why are they having a tantrum? Why are they upset? Let's coach them through it. Let's teach them these skills. It's a teachable moment. The word discipline comes from teaching, disciple is within that word. And so what are we teaching them? But I'll see oftentimes, individuals come to kids why are you doing that? That's wrong. Let me do that. And it's let's talk to them with respect and love and kindness and teach them how to do it. I find 99% of the time to 100% of the time, kids are not out to get you in these situations. And so, teaching them and showing them respect, they're going to give that right back. You don't necessarily have to ask for it if you're just already giving it to those kids. So that always breaks my heart when I see it. And I find it as a hopefully teachable moment for the individuals who work with the kids at the schools or even the parents. I'm never telling anyone what to do, but I always find it's a great teaching moment to share how I would approach it and see if someone wants to adopt it.
Ooh, I love that. All right. So Annie, we are got a minute or two away from wrapping up our show. Last question that we're going to bring it home. This is the signature question of the Grit Files. Now, if we looked into your closet there in Denver and looked at the footwear that best personifies who you are. I'm thinking Denver hiking boots, maybe I don't know. Tell us what that footwear is and why it represents who you are.
You're basically on the right track with that, Loralyn. It'd probably be my Chacos. I have the strap-on ones and also these slide-on sandals, and I think they are versatile. They're easygoing. They're ready for anything. But also you're not going to wear them in the snow. And I prefer the heat and the warmth, which hopefully is on its way very soon. So I am basically a lizard that wants to lay in the sun right now.
There you go. Okay. Poikilotherm's waiting for the heat, right, to come in and make you warm. I love it. So, okay, wasn't far off there. So with that, that's a wrap. We've got Annie Mork again, founder of Jobs for Therapists. Go take a look at it. All kinds of therapists, not just speech therapists, occupational therapists. Everybody's on there. They're growing quickly. And we're really glad to hear that you're on a great path with your journey of entrepreneurship. We wish you tremendous success. And thank you so much for coming to the Grit Files and being on our show.
Thanks, Loralyn.
And how about that fantastic intro by Touch Circle?